My story starts, I was born in Korea, but my dad is from North Korea. So during the war, he was lucky enough to be saved from communism with the help of the U.S. and British Army. So when he was 17, he crossed over to South Korea. So that's how we met my mom. So I always say if it wasn't for the war, I wouldn't be here because my dad would have never left North Korea to meet my mom in South Korea. So we grew up pretty modestly in South Korea, and my parents felt that there was no real future at the time. Talking to my mom, she mentioned that she had this great job at a bank. She was dressed up, she was very smart. She was also going to one of the top colleges in South Korea. But there's a cultural stigma of not being married, so she had to get married, and she knew my dad since she was 15 years old. And so knowing that my dad didn't have any family, and I guess at the time, women getting married became their mother-in-law's slave in a way. You just had to obey your mother-in-law's. You moved into your husband's house with his family. So I think my mom, being ahead of her time, she saw that my dad didn't have any parents. He was an orphan, and she found that attractive. But I guess she didn't realize that getting married at her time meant that she had to give up her job. So she had no job. So there was that catch-22 that you have to be married, but being married means that you don't have a ways to earn a living because you're not supposed to work. That's just the culture at the time. We were lucky enough in Brazil to actually win the lottery. So we went from being really struggling, living in the slums of Brazil, and then all of a sudden, and this is memories from when I was like 10, 11 years old, we're working through the immigration process to come to the United States, and I'm around 12 at that time. So, I wasn't part of the discussion, but they make the decision that America is a place that we all want to be, and so we decide to immigrate again. So at the age of 12, me, my dad, and my second sister, we moved to New York. We landed in Queens, the three of us first, and then my mom and my older sister, they came about a year later. I just feel really fortunate to be an American citizen. And by being in America, and my parents really emphasized education, so my job in life, my only job in life was to get straight A's in school. So I excelled in academics, and I went to college. I graduated college, and then my parents always had a store, so they didn't want me to work so hard in a small business. So they wanted me to go into corporate, I guess from her perspective and from my parents' perspective, going into a job where you get vacation and benefits, that seemed like a better alternative than working every day. And God bless my parents, they worked probably 14, 15-hour days, 365 days a year, and they did that for 17 years straight. So I went back to school, so I got my MBA from NYU, graduated, got a job with the Bank of New York. I started out in equity research, so I was helping the investment managers pick out stocks. Met my now ex-husband, who was from the country, from the Berkshires, and I started coming to the Berkshires since 1998, and I realized, having lived in three of the largest cities in the world, in Seoul, in Brazil, and New York City, I realized, I'm really a country girl at heart. And I fell in love with the country, fell in love with the Berkshires. And my ex-husband and I, we got married. We were about to have a baby. So we didn't want to raise a baby in the city. And by then I think I was ready to leave the city behind and my job, and decided to open up a small business in the Berkshires. And there was, Josh, my ex-husband, knew one of the poster childs for craft beers. So we decided to open up a craft beer bar, and we did that. And then I realized I love people, and I always did. The separation and the divorce led me to Pittsfield, where I am living now. And I met some of the most incredible, compassionate, kind, generous people. Some of my best friends are natives of Pittsfield.